Greetings and bienvenue, MITZU. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
This is a tale that dates back to the Heisen Daimyo of the Sengoku era 1568 to 1650. The Prince of Heisen, a member of the honored Nabeshima family, had as his favorite concubine a charming woman whose name was Otoyo. One evening the lovers wandered into the garden and stayed out enjoying the flowers until sunset. While returning to the palace, they realized that a cat was following them. Otoyo retired to her own room and went to sleep. At midnight, awakening with a start, she became aware of being watched by a huge double-tailed crouching cat. Before she could cry for help, it sprang at her throat and throttled her to death. The cat then scratched a hole under the veranda, buried Otoyo, and assumed her form. The prince knew nothing of this tragedy. He had no idea that the beautiful woman who came and made love to him every night was in fact a demon who was draining his life's blood. Day by day the Prince of Heisen's strength dwindled. His face became both pale and livid, as he appeared to be suffering from a fatal illness. He took all the medications prescribed by doctors, but none did any good, since his sufferings always increased at night. It was arranged for 100 servants to form a guard every evening when he retired for bed. Each evening the watchers took up their positions. But around 10 o'clock they were overcome by drowsiness. The Bakeneko would prey upon her victim as usual. The prince's health deteriorated steadily each day. His counselors realized that they were up against something supernatural. They turned to the chief priest at the temple, begging him for prayers for the prince's recovery. The prayers of the priest were disturbed by noises from the garden. A soldier called Ito Soda, who served in the infantry of Nabeshima. The young man begged to sit up one night with the prince to try to resist the drowsiness and detect the evil spirit. Eventually his request was granted. However, as the others, at 10 o'clock he felt drowsiness. To ward off the sleep, he thrust his dagger deep into his thigh so that sharp pain would keep him awake. As he watched, the sliding doors of the prince's room opened, and a beautiful young woman slipped into the room, making her way to the bedside. Suddenly she became aware of another presence. Though she called out, Ito refused to answer. Staying hidden, several times she attempted to cast her spells over the prince. But as long as Ito glared at her, she was unable to concentrate. Finally she retired in frustration to her own sleeping chambers, leaving the prince undisturbed. The following night the soldier again took up his vigilance and the same thing happened. After 2 undisturbed nights, the prince's health began to improve. Again and again the Bakeneko returned, only to have fruitless attempts at the prince. Gradually the night guards ceased to be overcome with drowsiness. It was obvious to Ito that the being who appeared at night as Otoyo was really a demon. He began making plans to kill her. At nightfall the soldier went to her chambers, pretending to deliver a message from the prince. As he approached, he struck at her with his dagger, but she sprang away, finding herself no match for Ito. She formed herself into a cat, leapt to the roof, and escaped into the mountains. The cat demon harried the local residents until one day the prince, having fully regained his health, organized a great hunt for the cat. He succeeded in avenging his beautiful concubine, for the Bakeneko of Nabeshima was finally destroyed. It is interesting to note, after reading of this legend, of a report that was published in Sunday Express, July 14, 1929 from Japan, the devil cat of Nabeshima is once more about its nightly business, bewitching the beautiful wives of the descendants of the old 2-sword fighting samurai. Gashadokuro. Basic translation: starving skeleton, also known as Odokuro, big skeleton. The Gashadokuro are spirits that take the form of giant skeletons, said to be created from the amassed bones of people who died of starvation or in battle. Without being buried, they wander around the countryside in the darkest hours of the night. Their teeth chatter and bones rattle with a gachai sound, which is this yokai's namesake. If they should happen upon a human out late on the roads, the Gashadokuro will silently creep up and catch their victims, crushing them in their hands or biting off their head. Soldiers whose bodies rot in the fields and victims of famine who die unknown in the wilderness rarely receive proper funerary rites. Unable to pass on, their souls are reborn as hungry ghosts, longing eternally for that which they once had. These people die with anger and pain in their hearts, and that energy remains long after their flesh has rotted from their bones. As their bodies decay, their anger ferments into a powerful force, a grudge against the living, and this grudge is what twists them into a supernatural force. When the bones of hundreds of victims gather together into one mass, they can form the humongous skeletal monster known as the Gashadokuro. Too large and powerful to be killed, Gashadokuro maintain their existence until the energy and malice stored up in their bodies has completely burnt out. However, because of the large amount of dead bodies required to form a single one, these abominations are much rarer today than they were in the earlier days, when wars and famine were a part of everyday life.
Nekomata. Basic translation: forked cat. Nekomata are found in cities and villages, transformed from ordinary cats. They are born in the same way as other Bakeneko, though only the oldest, largest cats with the longest tails and thus more power and intelligence become this powerful variety. When these cats transform from ordinary animals into yokai, their tail splits down the center into two identical tails. These monster cats are reportedly 1.5 meters long, minus the bifurcated tail, and often walk about comfortably on their hind feet and can speak human languages. While not all Bakeneko are malicious or violent towards their masters, nearly all Nekomata are. They look upon humans with contempt and are often responsible for summoning fireballs that start great conflagrations, killing many people. They frequently control corpses with their necromantic powers like puppet masters, and they use their powerful influence to blackmail or enslave humans into doing their bidding. The most dangerous and powerful Nekomata live deep in the mountains, in the shape of wild cats like leopards and lions. These wild monster cats grow to incredible sizes, many meters long, and prey on other large animals, such as wild boars, dogs, bears, and even humans.
Kitsune. Basic translation: fox. Foxes are a common subject of Japanese yokai folklore. According to these tales, all foxes have the ability to shapeshift into human form. While some stories speak of Kitsune using this ability to trick people, other stories portray them as faithful guardians, friends, and lovers, spouses. They are depicted as intelligent beings possessing paranormal abilities that increase with their age and wisdom. Kitsune have become closely associated with Inari, a Shinto kami, and serve as its messengers. This role has reinforced the fox's supernatural significance. The more tails a Kitsune has, up to 9, the older, wiser, and more powerful it is. Because of their potential power and influence, some people worship and make sacrifices to them. A Kitsune may take on human form, an ability learned when it reaches a certain age, usually 100 years. Although some tales say 50. As a common prerequisite for the transformation, the fox must place reeds, a leaf, or a skull over its head. Common forms assumed by Kitsune include beautiful women, young girls, elderly men, and less often young boys. These shapes are not limited by the fox's own age or gender, and a Kitsune can duplicate the appearance of a specific person. Kitsune are particularly renowned for impersonating beautiful women. Common belief in medieval Japan was that any woman encountered alone, especially at dusk or night, could be a Kitsune. Kitsune Gao, fox-faced, refers to human females who have a narrow face with close-set eyes, thin eyebrows, and high cheekbones. Traditionally, this facial structure is considered attractive, and some tales ascribe it to foxes in human form. Variants on the theme have the Kitsune retain other fox-like traits, such as a coating of fine hair, a fox-shaped shadow, or a reflection that shows its true form. In some stories, Kitsune retain, and have difficulty hiding, their tails when they take human form. Finding the tail, such as when the fox gets drunk or careless, is a common method of discerning the creature's true nature. A particularly devout individual may even be able to see through a fox's disguise merely by perceiving them. Kitsune can also be exposed while in human form by their fear and hatred of dogs, and some become so rattled by their presence that they revert to the form of a fox and flee. Kitsune are also said to have some difficulty speaking certain human words. Most Japanese people answer the phone by saying moshi moshi, and there is a legend that Kitsune cannot pronounce moshi moshi. More specifically, they cannot pronounce a whole word, but a part only, such as Nishida Sandigazaramasu for Uchai Desuka. So this is how you can tell someone is a human or at least not a Kitsune on the other line. Most tales of Kitsune are about foxes punishing wicked priests, greedy merchants, and boastful drunkards. They do this by confusing their targets by creating phantom sounds and sights, stealing from them, or otherwise humiliating them publicly. Mysterious illusory fires and strange lights in the sky are said to be caused by their magic, and are known as Kitsune or foxfire, and certain mental disorders in people have been attributed to possession by Kitsune, known as Kitsune Suki. The most famous Kitsune stories involve foxes that transform themselves into beautiful women, often for devious purposes, but sometimes out of love. Foxes in human form would even sometimes marry human men and have children, who would manifest their supernatural vulpine heritage in unusual strength, charisma, or spiritual power. Famous men such as the great Onmyaji, spiritual medium, sorcerer Abe no Seimei were often said to be the sons of fox wives. Other stories tell of Kitsune marrying one another. Rain falling from a clear sky, a sun shower, is called Kitsune no Yomiri, or the Kitsune's wedding, in reference to a folktale describing a wedding ceremony between the creatures being held during such conditions. The event is considered a good omen, but the Kitsune will seek revenge on any uninvited guests.
Kappa. Basic translation: river imp or river child. Kappa are aquatic reptilian creatures who inhabit the rivers and streams found all over Japan. Kappa are generally the size and shape of a human child, with scaly skin ranging in earthy hues from deep green to bright red, even blue. Their bodies are built for swimming, with webbed, thumbless hands and feet, and a turtle-like beak and shell. Despite their small size, they are physically stronger than a grown man. A dish-like depression lies on top of their skulls. This is the source of a Kappa's power and must be kept wet at all times. Otherwise, the Kappa will be unable to move and may even die. Cucumbers are among the favorite food of Kappa, but they also show interest in the backsides of humans and other animals, often seeking to pull the guts out through its victim's anus and devour them. Its favorite part of the human is the shirikodama, a fabled ball found inside the anus. Stories of Kappa pulling horses, cattle, and even children into rivers are very common. It was once said that if you write the name of your family on the first cucumber harvest and toss it into the river, it will stave off Kappa attacks. In the water, there is said to be no escape for anyone who crosses a Kappa. On land, however, it may be possible to outwit one. The honorable Kappa will feel obliged to return a bow, and if it can be tricked into bowing so low that the water in its dish spills out, it can be easily overcome. It may also be tricked into doing a handstand for the same effect. Once bested, many Kappa have been made to swear loyalty and friendship to their victory for the rest of their lives. The Kappa's apology may take the form of fish left on the family's doorstep every day, or the Kappa may instead instruct the people they have wronged in some secret medical art or formula, of which they seem to have much knowledge.
Tanuki. Basic translation: raccoon dog. Also known as Mame Tanuki, mommy deceiving spirit. The Tanuki rivals the Kitsune for the most well-known animal yokai. It is an East Asian canine that resembles a badger or raccoon. These shy nocturnal animals can be found on all of the Japanese isles, and Tanuki statues are popular decorations in homes and shops. Tanuki possesses powerful magical abilities, with a superb ability to change shape. They have a jovial nature and delight in playing tricks on humans. Perhaps the most famous attribute that Tanuki possess is their large and magical testicles, which they can adapt to any need. They are used as weapons, drums, fans to keep cool, even umbrellas. Often, Tanuki incorporate their testicles into their disguises, such as the Tanuki becoming a shopkeeper and its testicles transforming into the shop. The Tanuki is also said to be fond of coming out at dusk and drumming on its plump belly and distended kintama, golden balls, filling the night air with the deep hollow sound of pon poko pon. It's worth noting the raccoon dog's testicles are a motif unrelated to sexuality or fertility, and instead are a symbol of good luck and an element of silly, risque humor. The most intelligent and magically adept Tanuki have been known to adopt human names and practices, such as gambling, drinking, even administration and religious activities. Many live among humans without ever being detected. In human form, Tanuki have proven to be as corruptible as the humans they emulate, and some Tanuki have well-earned reputations as thieves, drunkards, liars, and cheats. Additionally, many use their shape-shifting powers to transform into stones, trees, statues, and even ordinary household items in order to play tricks on people.
Several years ago, I got very interested in yokai. not to an autistic degree, but I stumbled onto that yokai.com site and spent hours over the course of days reading about different ones. Fast forward to a few years ago, 2018 if I recall correctly, I may have had an encounter with an innocuous yokai called a Beto Beto. Taking a late night walk around the sleepy river town I lived in at the time. Streets are dead. Take a right at the church a few blocks from my home. Walk past the church and cross the alley behind it. Hear step right behind me, as though someone were running up on me. Whip around, fist cocked, ready to attempt to fend off my perceived assailant. Nothing. No one's there. Look around, up the street both ways, down the alley, scan the porches of the nearby homes. No sign of life within or outside the buildings around there. My slight pang of embarrassment was washed away by my mounting confusion as the adrenaline subsided. The sound had definitely come from right behind me. Sounded exactly like the last few steps of a running person as they stop running. Those short, halting steps that absorb your momentum and bring you to a stop. Enjoyed the rest of my uneventful walk. Later that night I remember reading about the Beto Beto, a spirit that follows people as they walk, and nothing more. My experience wasn't exactly like the legend, which states that they follow people for some time, until you step aside and politely offer to let them pass you. Once you do, the sound of Beto Beto's footfalls are said to walk past and away into the night. It was very similar though.
Kuda-Gitsune are a type of kitsune. They are a breed of tiny, thin, magical foxes, about the size of a rat. They are usually found in the service of sorcerers and fortune tellers. Because of their diminutive size, they can be conveniently hidden on the body, tucked in a sleeve or pocket, or carried inside of a matchbox or a bamboo pipe from which they get their name. Kuda-Gitsune are used by sorcerers in divination rituals and to place curses upon people. They loyally serve not just one person, but the whole family. Families with Kuda-Gitsune have the ability to tell fortunes, make prophecies, as well as send their Kuda-Gitsune out to haunt their enemies or the enemies of their clients, causing sickness and ill fortune. Households with Kuda-Gitsune are known by various names such as Kudamachi, Kudaya, Kuda-Tsukai, Izuna-Tsukai and Kudasho. Kudamachi families are able to use their powers to acquire any goods or furnishings that they might want. Therefore, Kudamachi families often become wealthy and powerful very quickly. However, as these families grow, they tend to acquire more and more Kuda-Gitsune. These spirits will breed quickly until there are upwards of 75 individual Kuda-Gitsune. Keeping too many Kuda-Gitsune will bring a family to ruin, as the creatures eat them out of house and home. At the same time, culling them to keep their numbers in check is risky due to their powerful magic, and giving them away to disciples or other families carries its own risks.
Masaki Gitsune is a powerful nine-tailed kitsune who appears in Kyokude Baken's epic novel Nanso Satomi Hakenden. The Chronicles of the Eight Dogs, finished in 1842. Long ago, when Kawagoe Moriyuki oversaw Shinobu no Oka Castle, a pregnant kitsune took shelter beneath the floorboards. Moriyuki's kind wife let her stay there and give birth. When a footman named Kakata Wanazo captured and killed the kitsune's mate, Moriyuki's wife took pity on the kitsune. She slipped her food to help raise her young. The cubs grew up healthy and left the nest. Then, the kitsune began to plan her revenge on Wanazo. Wanazo was having an affair with Masaki, the nanny of Moriyuki's infant son Takatsugu. One night, Wanazo and Masaki secretly slipped away from the castle. The kitsune followed them. Once away from the safety of the castle, she transformed into a bandit and threatened Wanazo with a sword. Wanazo and Masaki ran for their lives. They slipped off the road into the river and drowned. The kitsune had her revenge, but she felt bad that the young Takatsugu lost his nanny. To repay the kindness Takatsugu's mother had shown her, she transformed into Masaki and took her place as Takatsugu's nanny. For 2 years, Masaki the kitsune raised Takatsugu. One day, Masaki dozed off and part of her disguise failed. The young Takatsugu was startled. He cried out. Nanny's face turned into a dog. Masaki knew if people learned that Takatsugu had been raised on beast's milk, it would bring shame on him as a warrior. With tears in her eyes, she fled the castle before anyone could learn of her deception. Masaki moved to a field in Ueno and contemplated her life. Although she had lived for hundreds of years, she had not lived a meritorious life. Her divine power was low. She had killed people, even though they were her enemies. Masaki dedicated her life to charity and helping others. She disguised herself as an old woman and opened a tea shop. She sheltered travelers from the heat and cold. She gave refuge to orphans. She talked star-crossed lovers out of self-in packs. She clothed and fed the hopelessly poor. Over 20 years, Masaki saved the lives of 999 people. In that time, she reached her 1000th birthday. Her tail split into 9 strands, and her fur became white. Masaki became clairvoyant, which is how she sensed that Takatsugu was in danger. Masaki summoned all nearby Kitsune. They transformed into warriors and followed Masaki to rescue Takatsugu. After saving him, Masaki revealed her identity. She told him of their past connection and informed him that through her years of hard work and virtue she had earned the favor of the Emperor of Heaven. She was to transform into a Koryu, fox dragon, a Kitsune so powerful and virtuous that it is indistinguishable from a dragon, and ascend to heaven, leaving the earthly world behind. Masaki left the tea house and dove into Shinobazu Pond. A moment later, clouds formed and rain began to pour from the sky. As the storm blew, a great white Kitsune dragon emerged from the pond. The tea shop and all its tea utensils and furniture were sucked up into the sky. After a few moments, the thunder, wind, and rain subsided, the sky cleared, and Masaki disappeared.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.